Hoxton Movies with the Genesis Cinema on Hoxton Radio.
Good evening and welcome to Hoxton Movies live on Hoxton Radio. You're in the studio with me, Matt and Nikki.
Welcome back to Hoxton Movies on Hoxton Radio. You just heard Republica, Drop Dead Gorgeous from our soundtrack of the week, which this week comes from the Scream soundtrack, because we're doing a bit of a horror Halloween special on the show this week.
We certainly are.
And I'm very pleased to welcome our guest to the studio, Graham Higgins, who is the writer and director of Mile End, a new film. Is it? So, do you want to give us a little synopsis of the film, first of all? Let's start off.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you remember, there was a kind of genre, I guess it was the 80s or the 90s, I'd call it like the stranger danger genre. Mm-hmm. Things like Pacific Heights, single white female. And it was always about some regular person who meets someone and they get to know them and then they turn out to be not quite
the full ticket.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of my take on that. So it's all set in East London and it's about this guy set during the financial crisis, and this guy loses his job and he starts running as a way of kind of staying positive, and he meets this other runner who's this older guy, this American guy, and they become like running mates. It just kind of evolves, this friendship, and he doesn't really choose to be a running mate with this guy, it just kind of happens, and the guy's kind of quite charming but also a bit eccentric. Anyway, to cut a long story short, they become running mates, and as time goes on he starts to realise that this guy John is a bit unstable and unpredictable, and some kind of sinister things start to happen which are unexplained. And then Paul, the younger guy, tries to kind of extract himself from this friendship, and it's really about what happens there, and I won't tell you too much.
So how the American reacts to the guy trying to pull away from him.
And also it's a kind of mystery. I mean, I really like films that don't explain everything fully. I wanted to make something that had a certain level of ambiguity to it, where you came away saying, you talk about it afterwards and you go, oh, so what actually happened there? And the film is a kind of mystery in that way. So there's three kind of sinister things that happen related to the younger guy, and the film's really about what happened and who did what. So,
yeah. So you mentioned a few films there, sort of Pacific Heights and Single White Female. Is that where the idea came from? Is that kind of...
I don't know, I just really vaguely remember that genre and finding it quite fun, because it was always just... It was usually some yuppie, wasn't it, who was in peril.
Always, always.
So, I don't know, it stuck in my mind. I always thought it was quite fun. It would be something to kind of attempt. But I mean, that's just a touching off point for the idea, really. It was really more... I mean, the thing actually was prompted by something that happened to me, because I live in East London. I used to go running by the river, and it did actually happen to me that I was running past a guy, and he held up his hand to do this high five, and I just was like a typical English person, was like, I'm not going to high five a stranger.
Alarm bells rang, danger.
Yeah. So that just kind of made me think, what would have happened if I had actually high fived that guy? Or
and that's how it kind of sparked the idea.
The rest was I kind of made up really, but I think it's quite authentic because it's about East London. It is based a lot on what I've seen from running around by the river. I don't know if you know Narrow Street behind the river, and Canary Wharf, and that area. There's a sub-theme in it about the financial crisis, and in that area, Canary Wharf looms over the whole area. Yeah. So you can't really miss it.
This monolith that's kind of hanging over East London. Yeah.
So it's like a character in the film.
Yeah.
Wherever they're running, you can't avoid seeing. Even in Greenwich, we did some stuff on the river in Greenwich, and you can't avoid seeing.
So is that part of that thing? Obviously, he's made redundant or leaves his job because of the financial crisis, and he's kind of wherever he runs, he still can't escape it. It's still there.
I mean, it's kind of ambiguous how he loses his job actually, but everyone kind of assumes that he's a victim of the financial crisis. But I won't say what actually happened, and. The film, I mean, I wouldn't say the film is political in the sense that it's not trying to push a viewpoint about the financial crisis, but I just tried to tap into what I'd heard people say, It was the kind of zeitgeist, isn't it, of our time, what happened in the financial crisis and who's accountable, and it's really about that, I suppose. It's about different levels of society and how accountable people are, and if people at the top are seen as not accountable, then how does that filter down?
And affect those people that do take the brunt or bear the brunt of it.
Yeah, and does it make us all see life in our kind of values? Do they change?
That's interesting. So it's going to be screening at the Genesis on the 10th.
10th of November, 7 p.m. Yeah.
And everyone can get tickets on the Genesis website, which is just genesis.co.uk. Are you going to be screening it anywhere else?
Well, we premiered at Raindance in October, and we had a full house there, and we were nominated for Best UK Feature.
I saw that. Yeah, congratulations.
So that was amazing and kind of unexpected, to be honest, because we'd only just finished the movie, and they said they had like 6,500 entries, and so we were in that sixth.
In that small, yeah, that's brilliant.
And to be honest, it's quite a small film. You know, I mean, it looks amazing. It's all professionally made, and the actors are really good. But you know, it was a self-funded thing. It wasn't a big. So you know, we're on the back of that. We've put this screening on, and we're entering festivals, looking at trying to get a distributor. We probably will do some small preview screenings in.
It's a good way to build word of mouth as well, isn't it? Definitely. Yeah. So is this your first feature, as your first full-length feature?
Yeah, I've made quite a few shorts over the years. I mean, I'm originally from Liverpool, and I made a short quite a few years ago, which was called Pride, which was on Channel 4, and which did well, and was in the London Film Festival. But in the intervening years, I've had a family, and you know, I had to pay the bills. So my children have grown up a bit now, so it's been the first opportunity
to come back and really
so
devote all your attention to it.
Yeah.
And are you thinking about doing it again? Would you want to go out and make another feature? Is that something?
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, I mean, I've got a few scripts in the back drawer, which I'm kind of going to look at again. I've got some new ideas as well.
I was going to ask you that because obviously you've written Myland and directed it as well. So would you always prefer to direct your own material? You wouldn't adapt a novel? Would you be? Do you feel as a kind of artist, as a creative, that it's more your own voice if you're doing that?
I think I definitely made a better film because I really stuck to what I knew, and
nobody interfering.
Well, yeah, that's another thing. When you do something independently, you don't have the money, but you have a kind of creative freedom.
Yeah.
So I didn't have anyone over me in a financial sense saying, "Oh, well, that's not going to sell in wherever territory." So yeah, I think if you're trying to make a movie like this with not a lot of resources, and you're trying to make it compete with, I mean, some of the movies that were in the competition, they had like £1 million budget, so we were on that platform with that, which is amazing, which shows the level. But you know, if you're going to do that, I do think you really have to try and say something that has a voice, and I think I definitely feel that the film has a voice that's got authenticity to it.
Great.
Because you know, it's me basically, you know, looking into my own psyche a bit, I think.
But that's probably the best kind of cinema, isn't it? When it's personal, you know, because if you believe it, then it's going to hopefully, the audience will believe it. Yeah. It's
quite hard though, because you do have to kind of go into the. I mean, because this film's like a psychological thriller, a lot of it's in the mind, you know, and there isn't a lot of explicit violence, although there are violent things that happen. So it's all in that thing that you don't really see, and it's all in suggested. And when you kind of go into those areas and you start mining that, it is kind of strange.
Well, it can get dark, I suppose, can't it? Which is a kind of a terrifying thing. I remember, you know, I was watching an interview with an author the other day who had gone from writing quite light comedic fare into something a lot more dark and explicit. And they said they had to lock themselves away in a room because they couldn't quite believe that this was coming out of them. But actually, I think sometimes it can be a cathartic experience. You know, you're kind of expelling it almost. I mean, of course, though, with film, it's kind of always there then. But once it's kind of out there.
Well, it was funny, at the screening at Raindance, I was amazed. The feedback from the audience was people found it really disturbing, and they said that they found the way the story, they found it very tense, and by the end they were quite kind of exhausted by it.
Yeah.
And I'd almost thought, I mean, this sounds a bit ridiculous, but I kind of almost thought it as a black comedy in a way. Yeah. And I think when you're writing, you don't really have a sense of what it's like for audiences who are completely fresh to it.
It's too hard to be objective, isn't it, when you're that close to it, I guess. And so when you were filming around East London, was it difficult to get permission to film in those areas, or was that relatively easy? Because I know that, you know, there's organisations like Film London now who are like definitely trying to encourage more filmmakers, you know, using the landscape in the area. Was that difficult? It
was great. I mean, we just didn't have a budget for locations, and locations can quickly get very expensive. So it was a mixture of borrowing from houses and flats from people we knew, and then also we went to the council. I mean, Tower Hamlets, Hackney, Newham were really helpful. I went to them and just said, "Look, we've got no money. What can we do for free?" And they said, "Okay, well, you can film on the street if you have only 5 people." You know, and there was a location which is called Millennium Mills, which they let us in for a couple of hours.
That's cool.
They were really good about.
It's kind of got more of a renegade feel to it, though, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I suppose when you're making the film, does it feel more like?
Runway
Does it
film.
bring sort of the crew and everybody closer together because you're all you're working on a very tight schedule, very tight budget.
Yeah.
You know, you all kind of have to be in it for the passion, really, don't you?
Yeah, the crew were amazing because it was almost like a documentary crew, really, because it was small. And it was shot on the DP Annabelle Hanks. She's got this camera called the Alexa, which is a broadcast camera, so it's amazing quality. So she brought the kit, which was amazing. And local sound guy Andre Bacco, who lives in Hackney, just off Amherst Road. So it was a very close-knit team of people who came together because they liked the script and they wanted to do an independent feature. And so yeah, it had a really nice feel. We did it in the summer, and it was, I mean, it was hard work, but it wasn't like an industrial thing. It was like everyone coming together as a thing because they were, you know, excited about collaborating on something.
Amazing. Graham, thank you so much for coming on. And
Thank
remember,
you.
everyone, if you want to get tickets to this, you can go to genesiscinema.co.uk, and the film is called Mile End, and it's screening on the 10th, so you want to get tickets for that. Before you go, we want to ask, what is your favourite horror film? Because it's
Ooh.
Halloween coming
Ooh, the
up,
big
and this is
question.
kind of a bit of a thriller.
Yeah, well, I was trying to think of a more conventional one, but the one I'm going to go for is Funny Games by Michael Haneke.
Good choice.
The original, not the American remake.
The original.
Good stuff.
Very
So
good
there you
choice.
go. That was Graham Higgins. Thanks so much for coming in and talking to us, Graham. We're going to continue with our Scream soundtrack, also one of our top 5 horror films.